Let's go over the thriller, mystery, and horror books coming out in June. If you don't know me, I'm Carrie, and I read a book a day to give you the best thriller, mystery, and horror book recommendations, so if you're into that, make sure to give me a follow. We have 9 releases on June 2nd. The Last Time We Drowned by Saratoga Schaefer is a thriller that follows Charlie, who is an influencer who gets invited to live aboard a luxury ship with 5 other influencers. When a hurricane hits, the communication to the outside world is cut off, and to make matters more frightening, a killer is aboard. Man of My Dreams by Olivia Worley is a thriller that follows an author named Ivy who has met the man of her dreams. I mean, this man is identical to the man in her unreleased manuscript, down to his name, his occupation, and his description. How is this possible, and what could this man possibly be hiding? The Children by Melissa Albert is a horror book that follows adult estranged children of a now deceased famous author who are forced to confront their haunting childhood that has been written into their mother's work. Marion by Leah Rowan is a horror book that is a reimagining of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, where Marion fights back, kills her attacker, and then goes on to be a killer herself. The Backstabbers by Eliza Jabro is a survival thriller that follows 3 friends who find themselves trekking through the forest of the old stomping grounds of a serial killer. When one of the friends gets injured, they stumble upon a cabin where they encounter a man who may or may not be the killer they've been hearing so much about. Missing in Soho by Holly Stars is the standalone sequel to The Murder in the Dressing Room. This is a mystery that follows our protagonist, a drag queen named Misty Devine, as she looks into the disappearance of a photographer in the Soho area of London. Manieka by Cynthia Gomez is a gothic horror that follows a working-class witch who decides to rescue an heiress but loses control of her powers and her heart. Hunger and Thirst by Claire Fuller is a gothic coming-of-age horror story that follows Ursula, who in her youth joins a dangerous family in a squat house, and soon a dangerous event takes place that haunts her for decades to come as she becomes a sculptor. The Secret Attic by Chelsea Condra is a horror thriller that follows Addison, who inherits the property of her mother-in-law along with her husband. Soon she uncovers long-buried family secrets in connection with a missing girl. There are 8 releases on June 9th. Headlights by CJ Lead is a horror thriller that follows a special agent who is called back to Denver, a place he said he would never return to, with the message, "It's happening again." Seemingly innocent people are waking up on the side of the road with no memory how they got there, wearing the skin of victims they supposedly never met, and each of them have a single strand of hair tied around their tongues. It Came from Neverland by Cynthia Palaio is a horror thriller that is a reimagining of Peter Pan, and it follows Wendy Darling as she is forced to take down the dark entity that is Peter Pan once and for all. Summer's Never Over by Darby Bozeman is a thriller that follows Greer, and she is forced to return to her family's summer camp where she was once a counselor in the wake of her mother's passing. She is now forced to confront what happened 5 years ago when a fellow counselor lost her life. The Breakup Retreat by Camilla Sten is a thriller that follows Isabel, who decides to infiltrate a breakup retreat deep in the Swedish woods and expose its founder. People have gone to this retreat and never returned, and so Isabel decides it's finally time to get to the bottom of things, but when she arrives, things don't go exactly as planned. Heather by Caitlin Mullen is a slow burn literary mystery that follows a detective who reopens a cold case of twin missing teenage girls in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. Strangers Behind Closed Doors by Catherine Adele West is an investigative style mystery thriller that follows the disappearance of a makeup artist in a luxury hotel. Soon, a detective suspects a conspiracy connecting the case to other missing Black women. The Way It Haunted Him by Laura Samatin is a queer dark academia horror book that follows Michael, who is grieving the loss of his boyfriend and decides to seek atonement by continuing his boyfriend's research into demonic entities. Beach Thriller by Jamie Day is a psychological thriller that is a book within a book that follows an author who is working on her latest book, who soon becomes the victim of a stalker. On June 16th, there are 7 releases. The Spin by Faith Gardner will be available on Kindle Unlimited. This is a psychological thriller following a 1960s housewife named Rose, who is institutionalized after a suspected mental break, but soon her husband Joe uncovers evidence that Rose may not actually be losing her mind. Self-Help for Serial Killers by Asia McKay is the sequel to A Serial Killer's Guide to Marriage, and it follows our serial killer couple, Hazel and Fox, who may have taken out the wrong victim as they are now being targeted by some very dangerous people. The Summer Fun Massacre by Craig DeLuey is a horror slasher book that follows Sheriff's Deputy Tom Bailey as he is haunted by a massacre that took place at this summer camp many years ago, as he now investigates a new string of unalivings as the camp reopens. Someone Else's Husband by Kimberly McCrate is a thriller that follows 2 socialite women who find themselves in a deathly love triangle during an expedition to Mount Kilimanjaro. Such a Lucky Girl by Wendy Hurd is a YA fantasy horror book that follows Carrie, whose best friend Bella dumped her 3 years ago to be an influencer, And it worked. Bella is a successful influencer, and she leaves Carrie in the dust. Carrie soon discovers a dark self-help book, but neither she nor Bella are prepared for the ancient evil that is unleashed from this book. You Girls Play Nights by Katie Eldon is a thriller that follows four best friends who come up with hypothetical scenarios to get revenge on the man that killed their friend Helen. But now suspicion has fallen on the four friends because the culprit has been killed in a way that mirrors that of one of their hypothetical revenge plot scenarios. Is one of the women capable of murder, or does somebody know their secrets? Names Have Changed is a thriller described as Catch Me If You Can meets Counterfeit, and it follows a Singaporean con artist named Ophir who starts a confessional podcast recounting her life on the run. We have a Kindle Unlimited release on June 18th. That Carver Girl by Sarah Ennis is a thriller that will be available on Kindle Unlimited. It is a standalone that is part of a series, and it follows a woman named Lucy Carver who spent time in a psychiatric facility after accusing her father of being a serial killer. But now her dad's dead and she's home, and women are disappearing again. We have a Kindle Unlimited release on June 21st. Renaissance by J.L. Ross is a psychological suspense, and it's the first book in a series. It follows Catalea, who uncovers an ancient truth buried in her bloodline, that magic is real and it's coming for her. We have 4 releases on June 24th. It Could Have Been Her by Lisa Jewell is a psychological thriller following Jane, who returns to a house where she has a traumatic past to return a lost dog that belongs to a missing girl, and soon she uncovers dark secrets connected to her own haunted past. 9 Lives by Catherine Steadman is a thriller that follows a woman named Frankie who moves to a new neighborhood in London and begins spying on her neighbors via her cat's collar's camera, and soon uncovers a very dark secret of theirs. Or in Penrose Forest by Sean David Robinson is a sci-fi mystery thriller that follows Nico, whose mother went missing many years ago after she climbed up a ghostly staircase that was found in the woods. Nico has spent many years convincing himself that this didn't happen, but now he's returned to his hometown and people start to go missing, forcing him to confront what really happened to his mother all those years ago. The View from Here by Rachel Helsel Hall is a thriller that will be available on Kindle Unlimited. This follows Nicole, and her husband and her have been married for 11 years, but then he gets into a scuba accident near Catalina Island and is presumed dead. Nicole is doing her best to rebuild, but she soon starts receiving cryptic messages from her husband's phone. How is this possible? Is he somehow still alive? And lastly, on June 30th, we have 6 releases. Keep Them Close by David Ellis is a psychological thriller following Allison, who really wants her husband to be dead, and so when he winds up dead, she's immediately suspected, but she claims she didn't do it. Soon her brother Luke is entangled in the mess, and their bond is put to the test when their long-buried history comes to light. The Neighbors Are Watching by Aggie Blum Thompson is a suburban set psychological thriller that follows a woman named Karen who is investigating her own suspected drugging, who teams up with a new neighbor to investigate a 1-year-old murder of another neighbor. Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Paul Tremblay is a sci-fi horror book that follows a man in a vegetative state named Bernie, who is chaperoned through a distorted reality by a woman named Julia with a video game control-like phone, where Bernie must find somebody he can't remember. The Housewife by Natalie Borelli is a thriller that follows a trad wife named Jody who has built the life that she's always dreamed of, but can't let go of one obsession, proving that her husband Roy murdered his first wife Deborah. No One Knows You're Here by Rachel Helsel Hall will be available on Kindle Unlimited. This is a thriller that follows a crime reporter named Saeed who has been obsessed with the Phantom Killer, a serial killer known for targeting ladies of the night in South Los Angeles. When Saeed is contacted by somebody claiming to be the Phantom Killer that knows details that only the killer would know, she finds herself dangerously close to the action. And lastly, Not What It Seems by Lisa Jackson is the 5th book in a series, and this is a thriller following a detective husband and a crime writer wife who are investigating a series of murders. Thank you so much for watching. If you read any of these books early, please let me know which of them was your favorite, and if you haven't, let me know which of these June releases you're most looking forward to reading.